When you look in the mirror, what do you see? Not just your face, not just your features, but the story you've been telling yourself for years. That story becomes your identity. And here's the truth most people never realize: as the mirror lies. Not because it shows you something false, but because it shows you only what has already been. It reflects who you were, not who you can become. That's why the first step to changing your life, the kind of change that makes people stop and say, "I don't even recognize you anymore," is to break the mirror of who you think you are. Most people don't live out their potential because they're too loyal to their past. They keep repeating the same behaviors, not because they want to, but because they believe, "This is just who I am." That belief is a prison, and it's reinforced every day by your surroundings, your friends, your routine, even your own language. "I've always been like this. I'm not good at that. That's not me." These are not facts. They're mental handcuffs. You've accepted an identity shaped by survival, not vision. So here's the psychological shift: your identity is not fixed. It's fluid. The version of you that exists today is the byproduct of patterns, beliefs, and choices that have become habitual. But they are not permanent. You're not a finished product, you're a work in progress. But progress requires destruction. You must be willing to let go of the person you've always been in order to step into the person you're meant to be. Let me ask you something. What if this week you stopped reacting like your old self? What if instead of making decisions based on fear, doubt, or past failure, you made them based on your future self, your highest self? What if every morning you looked in the mirror not for affirmation, but with intention, asking, "What needs to die today so something greater can be born?" Think about the caterpillar. At no point does it learn how to become a butterfly. It just surrenders to the process of transformation. It literally dissolves inside the cocoon, loses its former shape, its former identity. That process looks like death, but it's evolution. And that's exactly what this week can be for you: the cocoon. A space where you let go of who you were to make space for who you're becoming. But here's the catch: breaking the mirror isn't a one-time act. It's daily. Because the world will constantly try to hand you the old reflection. Friends will expect the old habits. Environments will tempt the old behavior. And your own mind will whisper, "Go back. Be safe. Be familiar." That's when you have to choose comfort or growth, familiarity or transformation. You're not here to maintain an image, you're here to evolve. Let them be shocked. Let them wonder. Let them say, "You've changed." That's the point. You're not doing all this work so you can remain recognizable. You're doing it to become someone unrecognizable, even to yourself. So if you want this week to change everything, start with this: refuse to let the mirror define you. Smash the reflection, build a new one, a new standard, a new identity. And when people look at you next week and say, "What happened to you?" just smile and keep walking. Because transformation doesn't ask for permission. It just shows up with results. If you really want to change your life this week, so radically that people won't even recognize you, then don't start by changing your job, your relationship, or even your goals. Start by changing your habits, because your habits are not just what you do. They are who you become. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you believe yourself to be. And most people don't fail because they lack talent or opportunity. They fail because their daily habits are silently casting votes against the future they say they want. Look closely at your day. Not the dramatic moments, but the small, quiet ones. The first hour after you wake up. The way you respond to boredom. The things you reach for when no one is watching. These moments are not neutral. They're building something. They're either aligning you with the person you're trying to become, or they're reinforcing the person you're trying to outgrow. And here's the part most people overlook: your habits are not just behaviors, they are identity loops. Let me explain. When you do something once, it's just an action. But when you repeat it consistently, your brain forms a neural association. That association becomes a belief. This is what I do. And over time, that belief solidifies into an identity. This is who I am. So if you check your phone the moment you wake up, that's not just a habit. It's reinforcing an identity of reactivity. If you skip the gym, procrastinate on your work, or numb yourself with distractions, it's not just poor time management. It's a daily ritual of becoming someone you don't respect. But the reverse is also true. And this is the key to transformation. You don't need to wait for motivation or confidence. You just need to act. Discipline first, identity later. Every time you make a better choice, even if it's small, 10 push-ups, 10 minutes of focus, one better meal, you're building credibility with yourself. You're saying, this is the kind of person I am. And that internal credibility is what gives you unstoppable momentum. People chase success thinking it's about big, dramatic wins. But success is rarely loud. It's quiet, it's built in the dark. It's what you do when no one claps, no one watches, and no one cares. It's you versus your excuses, you versus your laziness, you versus who you were yesterday. You don't need to do everything. You just need to do the right things consistently. That's why this week is so important. If you treat it casually, it'll pass like all the others. But if you treat this week like a personal reset, a pattern breaker, you'll start compounding real power. Not because the week is magical, but because the habits are. Let go of the idea that your future is some distant version of yourself. It's not. It's a reflection of what you repeat. And if you want the world to stop recognizing you, if you want to become someone who commands attention, who walks with purpose, who is undeniably different, you don't need to announce it. Just build it quietly, repeatedly, habitually. Because in the end, you will not rise to the level of your dreams. You will fall to the strength of your habits. Choose them wisely. There is a moment in every person's life when they have to stop pointing fingers at the system, at their upbringing, at their circumstances, and say the words that begin all real transformation. This is on me. That's the moment the shift begins. That's when you stop waiting to be saved and start becoming the person who saves themselves. This week, if you truly want to change so drastically that no one even recognizes you, then take radical ownership of everything in your life. Yes, everything. Now, I understand. Some things aren't your fault. Life throws curveballs, illness, betrayal, failure, rejection. But ownership isn't about blame, it's about power. As long as something or someone else is responsible for your life, you've given away your authority. You've handed your steering wheel to someone else, and then wondered why you keep ending up in the same place. Let me tell you something that's uncomfortable, but necessary. Your life right now is the result of your standards. Not your desires, not your dreams, your standards. The things you've tolerated, the excuses you've allowed, the minimums you've accepted. Most people have high goals and low standards, and they can't figure out why nothing's changing. It's because change doesn't happen when you want more. It happens when you demand more from yourself. And that demand begins with ownership. Not conditional ownership, not partial. Complete ownership. You didn't get the job. Good. Ask yourself, what could I have done better? Your business is stuck. Perfect. Look at your decisions, your effort, your mindset. Your relationships are toxic. Then stop blaming the other person and ask yourself, why do I keep choosing the same patterns? You may not be at fault, but you are still the solution. That's maturity. That's power. See, responsibility is the weight most people avoid carrying, but it's the very weight that builds strength. And when you start carrying it, when you stop blaming, stop waiting, stop complaining, you realize something incredible. You're no longer a victim of life. You're the author of it. You're not reacting to circumstances, you're creating them. When I talk to young people who want success, the ones who stand out aren't the ones who have the best ideas or the highest IQs. They're the ones who take ownership. If they fail, they say, that's on me. If they succeed, they say, that's because I was consistent. These people rise fast, not because the world favors them, but because they don't waste time waiting for the world to change. They change themselves. This week, every time something doesn't go your way, catch yourself. Don't default to blame. Don't look for the easy excuse. Ask yourself, what could I have done differently? That single question is the seed of self-mastery. It's what separates amateurs from professionals, dreamers from doers, and the ordinary from the unforgettable. Because when you take ownership of your time, your emotions, your energy, everything becomes possible. You become focused, deliberate, calm. You stop reacting to life and start designing it. And that's when people start noticing the difference. They see a version of you they've never seen before, not because you've changed your face, but because you've changed your foundation. So if you want to become unrecognizable this week, if you want to evolve beyond the version of you that's stuck, tired, or frustrated, start here. Take responsibility for all of it. No more blaming, no more waiting, no more permission. Because the moment you take full ownership is the exact moment you take full control. If you want to become someone the world no longer recognizes, you must first reclaim one thing most people lose without even noticing their attention. Today, attention is currency, and the highest version of yourself is bankrupt. Why? Because your focus is scattered, hijacked, traded away for noise, for likes, for short-term pleasure. And here's the harsh truth. You cannot build anything extraordinary with a distracted mind. The world is designed to keep you reactive. Your phone lights up, your thoughts drift, your time disappears, and you don't even question it. But attention is not something you was have, it's something you have trained. You don't need more hours in the day. You need to zone the hours you already have. This week, if you want a radical change, don't start by doing more. Start by doing less, but doing it with full intensity. Focus is not about effort, it's about elimination. You don't become sharper by grinding harder. You become sharper by removing the dull edges, mindless scrolling, toxic conversations, shallow multitasking. Every notification you check, every tab you open out of boredom, every thought you chase without intention, those are small leaks. And over time, they drain the energy you need to reinvent yourself. Here's something most people don't realize: clarity is born in silence. Not in noise, not in speed. When you slow down and cut the distractions, you actually start to hear your own thoughts again. You begin to distinguish between what's urgent and what's important, between what excites your ego and what speaks to your soul. That's when focus becomes dangerous in the best possible way, because it turns your time into a weapon. You stop reacting to life and start directing it. Think of the most impactful people in the world, not the loudest, but the most effective. What do they have in common? Precision, presence, discipline. They're not spread thin, they're locked in. They're not everywhere, they're right here fully. That's how real power is built. Not by chasing every opportunity, but by focusing relentlessly on the few that actually matter. And the truth is, you already know what those few things are. You don't need a guru or another podcast to tell you. You know the habits you're avoiding, the project you keep delaying, the voice you keep silencing. But when you're surrounded by constant noise, clarity becomes inconvenient. Because when you're finally clear, now you have to act. Now there are no excuses. So this week, cut the noise. Turn off the notifications. Block the distractions. Say no without guilt. Give yourself space to think, to work, to reflect. And when that resistance shows up, and it will, don't run from it. Sit in it. Push through it. That's how mental sharpness is forged. In stillness, in struggle, in solitude. Because focus isn't just about productivity, it's about identity. You become what you give your attention to. If you stay distracted, you stay deluded. But if you train your focus, you train your future. This is where the transformation becomes visible. People won't recognize you because your presence will feel different. your energy will shift. Your results will multiply. So if you want to become unrecognizable, if you want to lead, build, evolve, don't just add more to your plate. Start by cutting away the noisy, because a focused mind is a dangerous mind. And this week, you get to choose: be overwhelmed by the world or become the kind of person the world can't ignore. If you truly commit to change this week, real change, the kind that shifts your energy, your habits, your identity, then you must be ready for what follows: resistance, discomfort, maybe even rejection. And that's not a sign you're on the wrong path. In fact, it's the opposite. It's proof you're evolving. You have to understand this clearly. Growth doesn't feel like victory when it's happening. It feels like confusion, like fear, like losing your balance, because transformation isn't clean, it's messy. And when you start letting go of old patterns, breaking away from people who drain you, or choosing hard things over easy comfort, the world around you often won't applaud. They won't say, "Look at you growing." They'll say, "You've changed." And not always like it's a compliment. But let them say it. That phrase, "You've changed," is one of the greatest confirmations you'll ever receive. Because it means you're no longer playing small. It means you've stopped doing what's familiar just to fit in. It means you're stepping into something unfamiliar, uncertain, and necessary. Here's the reality: the people who knew the old version of you will often resist the new one. Not because they're bad people, but because your growth forces them to confront their stagnation. When you raise your standards, it reminds others of the standards they've let slip, and that can create tension. That can create silence, sometimes even distance. But that's not your problem to fix. Your job is not to shrink to keep others comfortable. Your job is to evolve and let the world adjust. And let's not ignore the internal resistance. That voice in your head that says, this is too hard. You're not ready. Well, go back to what you know." That voice is old software running on a new system. It's programmed by fear, and fear's job is not to destroy you. It's to protect you. But fear doesn't know the difference between danger and discomfort. It sounds the same alarm for both. So every time you move toward growth, fear will speak louder, not because you're weak, but because you're about to outgrow who you used to be. And that's why most people stop. Not because they lack potential, but because they misinterpret resistance as a red flag. It's not. Resistance is feedback. It means you're moving forward. You're stretching past what's easy, past what's certain, into what's necessary. If you're feeling doubt this week, good. If you're uncomfortable, better. That means you're not repeating yesterday. That means the system is being challenged. That means your future self is under construction. And don't wait for it to feel natural. Growth never feels natural. You don't become a better speaker by staying silent. You don't become a stronger leader by avoiding conflict. You don't build a new life by keeping the old one untouched. You build by risking. You build by stumbling. You build by walking straight into the discomfort and saying, this is the path. So expect resistance. Welcome it. Let it be your signal. Not that something's wrong, but that something powerful is happening beneath the surface. Because when you start feeling like you don't fit into the old places, the old relationships, the old routines, that's not loneliness. That's evidence. It means you're growing beyond the frame that once held you. And that's when transformation becomes irreversible. So remember this: if it's easy, it's probably not changing you. But it's hard. If it's stretching, if it's shaking, if it's testing you, you're on the right track. Keep going. Let the discomfort shape you. Let the rejection fuel you. Because when the world no longer recognizes you, that's when you finally started becoming you yourself. There's a powerful shift that happens. You stop waiting to become your future self, and you start acting like that person you now. Too many people treat growth as something distant. They say, someday I'll be confident. Eventually I'll get disciplined. One day I'll lead, I'll speak, I'll build. But they never notice what that language is doing. It's delaying their identity. And here's the hard truth, Abe, you can't build the future you want with the behavior of the person you're trying to leave behind. Everything changes the moment you decide to show up, as if you've already arrived, not pretending, not faking, but embodying. You walk like it, you speak like it, you train like it. You move through your day as if the future version of you is already watching, because they are. Your future self is not some fantasy. It's a blueprint. And every decision you make this week is either building that person or burying them. You see, your brain doesn't know the difference between who you are and who you're becoming. It only responds to repetition and identity signals. So when you start showing up with more intent, more presence, more structure, your brain says, oh, this is who we are now. And it begins to reorganize your confidence, your patterns, your results around that identity. Think of anyone you admire. Someone who commands respect, who radiates self-discipline, who gets results. You know what's different about them? They didn't wait until they felt ready. They started operating from that mindset before the evidence was there. They didn't wait for success to give them permission. They moved like they already had it. And the world adjusted. Because the world responds to clarity. It responds to conviction. When you walk into a room with presence, shoulders back, voice grounded, mind focused, people feel that energy. When your actions are aligned with purpose, people notice, even if they can't explain why. That's why the change we're talking about this week isn't loud. It's not about announcing your transformation. It's about you becoming so different in how you carry yourself that people sense the difference without a word. But this kind of transformation doesn't happen by default. It happens when you stop negotiating with your limitations. When you stop saying, I'll try, and you start saying, this is who I am now. You'll face resistance, yes. Your environment may try to pull you back into old patterns. Your own mind might whisper, who do you think you are? And your answer needs to be simple, exactly who I've decided to be. That's the power of identity-based transformation. You don't wait for external validation. You become, and then the results follow. So this week, stop rehearsing failure. Stop practicing fear. Stop dressing like your old self, thinking like your old self, reacting like your old self. Stand taller. Speak with purpose. Show up early. Finish what you start. Treat your time like it's worth something, because it is. Every hour you waste playing small is an hour your future self doesn't get back. And when people say, you're different, don't apologize. Don't explain. Just smile, because that's the goal. You should be unrecognizable. So don't just hope to become the person you admire. Be that person. Today, this hour, this minute, because the fastest way to become your future self is to stop acting like you're not already them.